print industry is a hotbed of innovation. New technology, applications, hardware, software. Every day it feels like there's something groundbreaking and revolutionary being announced. But despite this, it still has a reputation as being a traditional sector of ink and paper, dirty fingers and heavy machinery. In fact, many of us started out in the business when this is how it was. But as the world is changing, so are print's customers, and so are their perceptions. Is the industry keeping up? Is it time to start changing how we talk about print to those who are seeking to buy in? That's a question I put to 3 top voices from the world of print, and this conversation is the result. It's the first of what I hope will be many Digital Printer podcast episodes. And I hope you enjoy the conversation. And if it raises any questions, inspires any ideas, or if you just have something you want to say about it, leave a comment or get in touch and tell us what you think. And if you want to sponsor an episode, drop us a line here at the magazine. You can find our contact details at digitalprintermag.co.uk. And now, on with the conversation all about selling the Sizzle. Thank you guys for joining me. As we kind of said in the preamble before I started recording, this is a conversation about selling the Sizzle. And it's all about marketing to a new generation of business owners, entrepreneurs who maybe are less interested in what the machines can do, are more interested in what the machines can do for them. So rather than kind of, selling the idea that this is a, UV DTF inkjet machine that does 6 colors with magenta and, neons and spot UV and all that kind of stuff. Are we better placed to be saying to them, this is a machine that will print iPhone cases or thermos flasks or that kind of thing? How can we connect with that? And to help me kind of explore this topic, I've got Marine Kerivel-Brown, who's kindly joined. She's the Global Director of Marketing from Duplo. We've got Andy Lydiatt, who's the Strategic Growth Director at Pureprint Group. And of course, Colin Sinclair McDermott, who is the online print coach. I'm tripping over my words this morning. The online print coach, and also kind of a bit of an expert in print marketing. And yeah, I just want to see where this conversation goes. It started with a quick chat I had with, I should give a sort of hat tip to Duncan Jeffries from Hybrid Services, a conversation I had with him on this topic. He can't join us, unfortunately, but it got me thinking this would make a great feature for the magazine. So how do we sell the Sizzle and not the sausage? So where should we go? Who should we go with first? Marion, what do you think?
But I think I'm very pleased that we're having this conversation, because one of the reasons why I joined Duplo was to transform the conversation that we have when it comes down to print away from the machine or the solution, but actually what does it enable a printer to deliver and what's in it for a brand. So there is definitely a shift from selling print to selling possibilities. And suddenly it becomes much more engaging because you tap into creativity, you tap into what can be achieved through a solution, through a machine. But it's not about the specs or the size of the sheet or the number of colors or any of these parameters. The machine is the enabler, but really what you need to discuss and showcase is what it can help a commercial printer or printer to achieve, what it enables them to deliver for their business so that they can grow with their customers in mind.
Yeah, I think on that point, it's definitely selling the outcome. So how do we position, or how do we, and it's not just us as an industry, generally it's an external perception of what a printed product is. It's very linear, it's very flat, and it's steeped in tradition. And don't get me wrong, there's an awful lot of value in craft and tradition. But actually, the modern consumer is exactly as Marine just said, buying a different type of product that's enabled by printers. They're not necessarily buying and they do still buy, so this is not to denigrate what I'm just about to describe, but it's a great way of describing it, leaflets and newspapers, which are typically understood as what's printed.
Yeah.
Actually, what they don't understand is those really cool water bottles or the luggage or the customized hoodies or the posters, which is a snapshot in time of your favorite concert that you've taken on your phone and you've displayed via TikTok, and then you've captured the image and it's printed. Ultimately, they're still product. And I think as an industry, we're getting much better. And I think actually within the last 6 to 12 months, it appears that we're getting much better at selling and enlightening the type of things McMahon's just talked about. But we have a sort of a public perception problem that isn't going to get changed overnight. It's going to get changed by the movement, things like this, and other things that you see going on at the moment, which is getting away from the heavy artillery, what is seen as the traditional footprint of a printer, into a modern, connected, available, sustainable, or at least something that's trying to be the boxes. And the products are fully customized for the type of consumer. We'll all say we're involved in that as well. But generally, it's not just a young thing either. It's a modern consumer thing, and it's driven by a younger demographic. But equally, that then finds its way to our type of modern consumer, and print is thriving. It's just struggling to break free of the traditional shackles that it had on before of the products it produces. The products it's producing now are cool as, the unboxing experience. Digital cannot compete with opening a box with something laser cut on the inside, and it looks really great, and it's got your name on it, arrives at the right time. You stick it on your shelf, you put it on your wall, you use it. Well, actually, we've spent so many years competing with digital as a channel, rather than looking at the products we produce and focusing on the positive aspect of what we produce. And there's a lot of businesses sprouting up all over the place to produce these type of businesses. They maybe are not the traditional print businesses that we all grew up with over the years. There are a lot more smaller, more nimble startups out there. So, I think in the right hands, great start having this type of topic as well. It's a fantastic industry to be in. I think we just have to break over some of the traditional ways that we talk about it.
Yeah, for sure. I know certainly, I'm very blessed. I get to work with a lot of young people in the industry I'm on the board for the Next Gen Committee with FESPA, and I'm a judge with the Rising Star Awards that the printing charity do. So you get to have a lot of kind of conversations, and these younger generation, they're not aware of the old experiences that we're used to. They actually prefer a more tactile kind of aesthetic experience when it comes to these kind of products, and I don't think people really appreciate just how much print is around us. Like, no matter where we go, even I'm sitting in my office just now looking at all the things that are printed around me, but I think it is shifting. I definitely, obviously, Chris, we caught up at the print show last week or the week before, and we are trying. We're making an effort. Kind of, you've got young people in print. The Next Gen were there. The Rising Stars. We're doing tours of the show floor to let people see what the opportunities are and what machines are actually used to produce what products. I'm heading out to Printing United next week, and I'm going to be heavily involved in Student Day out there, where we're going to be doing show floor tours around some of the big OEMs, and I think that's a start, is obviously having conversations like this as well. But we need to show what the possibilities are. I think we're getting better at it, but it doesn't stop here. We have to keep going.
But I
Do you
think
think there is sorry, Marion. I
no.
was just going to say, do you think there is a kind of lack of marketing nous in the print industry, where we are just still trying to sell? On the PSP perspective, we're trying to sell print and not opportunity, and similarly with the OEMs, we're trying to show metal.
There is definitely, I think there is still the struggle, I would get it, to find the right narrative for print and move away from print as it might be perceived by some to actually what print has become today. You're still dealing with an industry, because print is an old industry in the sense that print has been there for centuries. But how print engages today with an audience, that's a completely different situation, where suddenly the lines between printed and digital communications have become completely blurred, where you print a QR code and you scan it, and then suddenly you immerse yourself into a virtual world. So I think print is still trying to find how it can remove itself from this old-fashioned tag to really position itself as an amazing and powerful platform to engage with audiences, irrelevant of the age of the audience, irrelevant of where they're at. The reality is that print connects in a way that no other media does, but I don't think we've yet acquired the skills or developed the ability to talk about it in a way that really kind of gives it the space that it needs. So I think there is still that. I think we're at that junction of trying to shift the old image and trying to find what the new one is. And in my perspective, I don't think we've established that clearly yet. If I look at it slightly differently as well, and that's having that global mindset in mind, there are different levels of maturity of print in the world, and the language that we're having in the UK might not translate in a different kind of country or region, just because they're not at the same level of maturity when it comes down to print. So I'm also very aware of the fact that we are probably ahead of the curve, and that could be why the marketing is not quite there yet, because we haven't got that mass impact yet, because in fact, depending on the regions where you are in the world, you're having to adapt how you talk about print, because you're dealing with very different situations and market maturity levels. And I do think that because of that probably slightly fragmented approach, we haven't yet found that cohesive voice that allows to very clearly project what print stands for. And I do think we are at that kind of transition phase, and that's affecting us and our voice.
Yeah, I think that's probably an education thing, isn't it? That takes time for that to filter through to everybody. And I think we've used the word, and it's the topic, and we all work for print businesses, and it's education around what print is, because I think we've all at some point in our career, and probably this week, if not this month, been, whether on directly or indirectly, avoiding using the word print because you don't think it adequately describes the actual experience or the outcome that you're going to deliver. But then again, it goes against exactly, because people still want legacy and history and tradition and craft and all of those things because it's solid. But actually, we struggle with the word print because of education and the perception of the heavy iron that we talked about at the beginning of this conversation. So, but to answer your question, from a PSP's perspective, do we struggle to market it effectively or sell it effectively? From a PSP's perspective and I think we're getting a million times better. The role, if we talk about sales and marketing, ever increasingly the importance of effective marketing departments, functions within our, it's the same industry wide, I think, but definitely from a print perspective, are ever increasingly getting deeper and more important and more aligned to the sales process and more aligned to the business strategy. Historically, the marketing, I'll be very general here, 20 years ago, 10 years ago, the role of marketing within a PSP would have started and ended with traditional writing copy, doing some advertising and really lower level administrative functions. And now it's strategically so important. They're almost more important than, I'm going to be really controversial, so I hope you don't put this out on the socials. It's more important than the salesperson. If I'm honest, demand generation, the strategic importance of effective marketing and perception and the use of data, how you maximize the channels, how you put content out at the right time. We talk about not wanting to sell equipment, yet everybody loves watching a video and it shows an inkjet press running around. So, we've got to be really careful, the baby and bathwater type of analogy. We don't sell the equipment, but generally speaking, people will probably engage with that content on social media, just showing how a press works and showing how things function because it helps. But ultimately behind that is marketing. But that's a relatively new thing. The really sharp PSPs, definitely in the UK, I can speak of, have caught on to this in and around COVID and times and 5, 6, 7 years ago. But it's not, Colin will probably lay testament to this. He's exposed to more PSPs than I am. It's still relatively new from a traditional print business, trying to get the marketing team together, doing demand. What do you mean demand generation? I normally just send a rep out, he picks up a phone and we try and sell. But ultimately, they're selling print because they're challenged with targets. Actually, marketing can sell experiences and make the customer create the demand that they come to you because actually what's the product you're producing and draw them in. And their techniques taken from digital, and they're coming across into digital, and that will continue. I cannot see that will stop, and that's all to our benefit because we've got so much material to use. Let's be fair, we're not struggling to put images of all these products that we produce out, and some of them look really cool. They resonate really well. How do you position them? Who do you put them in front of? Who are your audiences? Who are your targets? What type of message are you trying to portray? Not, I'm trying to sell you some print. What's the price per thousand? Which I'm being very general here. That is traditionally how it was sold. And, and that is changing. I think it's changing right across the piece. You just have to log on to LinkedIn. Don't get me wrong. Once somebody's done a blog or somebody's done a walking video, everybody does it. So, but, first in, and, those businesses that are first in for that type of messaging, and that get some advantage. So I think we had a problem. I think it's getting much better, and I can see it continue to get much better because we've got the material, we've got the content.
Yeah, it's definitely getting better, but I do still see there's a lot of people out there just still kind of marketing that kind of one size fits all approach. One of the methods, and hopefully you guys agree with me as well, but I kind of, in fact, I'll talk about this in a minute. You got one of these at the show, Chris, but one of the things I kind of try and change is getting the clients I work with certainly to think more about who they're speaking to and selling that transformation. But it's understanding the different types of customers. Every PSP is going to have a multitude of different sectors that they target, and the light bulb moments I see when I can explain this to people, because we're building those, I call them customer avatars or buying personas, but when you start talking to the audience you're trying to target with stuff that resonates with them, the transformation that you're bringing to them as a PSP, kind of your message hits home a lot quicker. You actually get a greater return on investment on your time and efforts. But there's nothing more. I still go on LinkedIn and you see people just sell all the time. They're not talking to their audience. They're not trying to educate them. And ultimately, we are more than just print companies. We are advisors. We always assume that the clients know that they're buying the right products for what they're trying to achieve outcome wise. And actually, we need to be speaking up more and actually saying, you know what, get some case studies here. These are similar businesses we've worked with in your space, and have you thought about trying this? Have you thought about trying that? We need to become more than just a print service provider. We need to be that trusted advisor, that partner that can guide them and again, if you do that, it brings the right type of customers. We all want customers who are going to come back time and time again, who are going to refer you to other people, who are going to become advocates for your business, and that's how you go about doing that, by standing out in kind of, let's be honest, a really busy space with lots of the same noise.
Yeah, but to me, a lot of what we do and our responsibility is for me, everything starts and ends with the customer and understanding that customer and understanding what resonates with them and what engages them. If you do that, and if you do that thoroughly, then you will deliver the story that resonates and engages with where they're at. And Andy, you mentioned education earlier on, and that is, to me, that remains a constant area of improvement with how we talk about print. It's about educating, moving away from the technical specs of a machine to what the machine enables a printer to deliver and to produce. This is for me still a narrative. When I joined Duplo 8 years ago, that was one of the first things. I don't have an engineer mind. I'm not a technical person, and I'm glad I am not a technical person. I really don't care how it works, but what I do care about is what it delivers to a print provider, and that for me is the key thing. So the language started to evolve from the product specific kind of technical specifications to the what it creates, but it's an education process, and it's that constant reframing the conversation to actually no one cares about the specs. Or, later on in a sales cycle, there might be at some point they need to check, but it's not what engages them. You need to be able to speak to them in a way that resonates with where they're at.
Yeah, it's what products will it deliver?
Correct.
And again, and how do we speak? And if all we're dealing with, and again, I'm being very general about, traditional ways of doing it, but feeds and speeds and price per thousand, very linear conversations, and it's not enthusiastic. So however enthusiastic you are about these topics, sometimes to enthuse people and, not losing sight of, and it is true, and it's a bit of a worn out phrase, but people do buy into people. They want ideas. It's not always about it. When you're delivering a price and you're in a competitive situation, that's one thing. But actually, face to face, adding value. You talked about it as well, Colin. Trusted advisor. Who's gonna? You may represent a business that manufactures product, and it just so happens that the manufacturing process used to deliver that product is printed. Having said that, on its own, it doesn't work anymore either. It's all about collaborating with third parties. It's all about the right type of partnerships, because what we are realizing is on its own, we will just print stuff. Yeah. Actually, when you're dealing with in direct mail terms, if you're dealing with a data agency that brings data to life, a creative agency that pulls out, the right type of imagery, all the that is just talking about direct mail and then delivering it on time, right message by the right channel. So let alone merchandise. So, all these things are not deliverable by the print company on their own. And I think that's where PSPs who are maybe not as far down the road as seeing what we're talking about here will get stuck, will get fearful. I know what I know. I know my presses and I know my printing. You'll probably run into this all the time, Colin, in definitely in the exposure that you will get and how you're trying to help people with this journey is actually to make a lot of these things come to life. You do need the assistance of others, and it's other channels, other sectors, other partners. And together that brings the product to life. But it's not possible. You talked about, Marine, about enabling. Actually, none of that is possible without us, the printer. Yeah. But it's also not possible without the input from others. And how you tell that story, how you bring that to life, how you make it easy. We're an industry that kills ourselves with buzzwords. We absolutely do. We alienate people. We might know it ourselves within our industries, but then we'll come up with a new buzzword. We'll fly it in there. We'll think we're really clever. And we alienate people because we'll use it all the time. But it's not simple. It's not understandable. And then you end up, wondering why people don't join you on that journey, because you thought it was a great idea, but they didn't understand what you were talking about because it was it was full of buzzwords. But what we do a product. This is not to label what do it necessarily with Pureprint, but it brings into context what this is all about. We have a packaging division. And on its own, if I just talked about packaging, it would feel quite flat. But we produce influencer boxes. But end of the day, we deliver a box that arrives, but actually it's using digital channels, influencers, product, social media, and we're just one part of that. And when that box is delivered, it suddenly has a different life, and then it's interesting, and then it's really exciting, and it gets delivered on channels. But on its own, it's a box. But with ideas and creativity and purpose and meaning and integration. And again, we use words like integrations. We fly around APIs and web to print and print, all these things. But we do all those things. But actually, all we do is open up the channels and the way for people to buy the products that we produce. But we use these words, and all of these words that always mean stuff to absolutely everybody. So it goes back to the education, making things simple, being really enthusiastic, and putting the right people in front of having the right conversations to help more people have those conversations. And then, we look to try and change, one of the oldest industries in the world, and it's going to keep on going. And I think, anyone listening to this will realize there's a lot more for it to go at, if that makes sense. Let's be fair, in this massive digital age where everything's, getting automated and moved into AI and all those things, and we can all use those techniques to help our business grow. We produce tangible product that still gets produced. We're still going to need tangible product that still needs to get produced. How we do it will change infinitely, but we still produce stuff. It's artisan, it's craft, it's physical.
That's even more important because sometimes the printed box, card, anything is the only tangible link between a brand and its end user.
And the idea. Yeah, totally.
Yeah. So it is so important because, you will buy your dog food virtually and get it delivered monthly, but the only physical interaction is the box in which it comes, and actually whatever piece of information goes with the product. And that is actually the brand experience that you acquire or develop.
100%.
So more than anything, especially in a very digitally driven world, print is that trusted physical experience that delivers that brand and creates that physical experience and connection between a brand and its end user. And that comes through print.
100%.
So how do we get better at marketing that to the younger generation that are coming through? Because again, I think it's great that, as I touched on, like what a lot of like the trade shows and organizations are doing to bring young people in, but in the day to day, like what can we do? What can PSPs do better to showcase all these amazing things that we can do within the industry?
Yeah, and how do you sell that? Because I had a conversation with someone from Plotchmatic a little while ago, and they were showing me some examples of some wonderful packaging. And when you get a new iPhone or something like that, and you get the box, and it's got a feel about it when you open the box, and that, as Marine was saying, is part of the brand experience. When you've got a democratization of design, so we're seeing Canva, people are, the kind of technicalities are slightly being lost, because I can now go with no print experience and I can create something online in Canva, send it off to a printer, regardless of whether it's CMYK, RGB, and then the printer has to deal with that and turn it into something. But I can sort of say, I am a designer now, even though I don't have the kind of technical know-how. Is that kind of language being lost? Is there a cultural shift going on? Gelato, who do the kind of web to print fulfillment platform, they now have a plugin for TikTok, so you can sell print through TikTok. Where is the kind of the importance of quality, the importance of that emotional connection for maybe the end user, but also the new entrepreneur who's coming into the industry with lots of ideas, but not necessarily the technical know-how and experience? Or is that being lost to them?
I think, just to jump in on that, I think to tie what yourself and Colin both said, it's multifaceted, really. So if you think about all the cool stuff we've just talked about, all the customized merch that seems to be growing and continuing to grow almost daily, and the entrepreneurs or the influencers or the different, to be fair, I would imagine many industries are challenged with this as well, as in the demand for those products is getting generated in areas that traditionally they weren't generated from. It used to be a lot of the more established brands would have an agency, they'd come up with an idea, they'd do the creative, and you'd deliver something. And there'd be lots of different ways that campaign or that objective would get looked to put together. now it's really easy not really easy. It's far simpler for a startup to pop up. So it's harder for us as an industry to always know where to look as to where these ideas are coming from. So if you're going to produce, Wonderfully started somewhere, so, personalized children's books, but I'm also, gelatos of this world, the different marketplaces for these ideas. It's those marketplace ideas or those funding circles or those hangouts that these new types of organization that generate demand socialize in, and that would probably mean, that's why I talked earlier about demand generation. To reach them and to reach those ideas is harder than it will have done, or it's changed somewhat, or it's changing over time. So, again, it goes back to an approach to have to make the products or the product you produce aware to those people. But also some of these, the established brands, that they need to change as well. And the method of procurement for this totally different sort of would once I go down the road of procurement, it's a completely different topic for another podcast, I would suggest. But how printed products are procured both in the UK and world, just prevalent within the UK. It hasn't changed for 10, 20 years either. A lot of it is contracted and the products are very similar. But, those brands, notwithstanding, still have a need for the type of product we're producing, because their end customers are 9 times out of 10 very similar ones to the startup businesses. So there's a different way of doing that. But, it'll all come back to, if we can't attract, and the reason I say it's multifaceted is, as an industry, if we can't attract the type of young talent or make it an enticing industry to get into, with all due respect for on this call, we're not always going to see the areas at which these things are this demand is sprouting from, but younger people will do. And you need to make this industry a lot more appealing. And I think with everything Colin's just said as well, and I visited a couple of the trade shows that I've gone on lately, and there's an awful lot more effort and shining a light on, finally, for us putting time and effort and people and resource and energy and emotion into making it an enticing place for younger people or new people. Again, it doesn't always have to be young people, actually. It could just be new people into the industry with a different way of looking at it, because they'll look at it totally different to potentially how we would look at it, because we've been in it for ages and we're used to looking in the same places, let alone the businesses that are looking in the same places. So I think it's multifaceted. We've got a different type of consumer, we've got a different type of buyer, but we also need to attract a different type of skill into printing. And again, we can only do that by the people who are in it, or the right type of people, and all of us together, talking in a slightly different way. And it doesn't always have to be sexy stuff either. It can just be effective, and sometimes, to different businesses and different brands, it can just be more effective, and that's where equipment comes in and technology and all that type of stuff. But I think historically we've led with that, thinking that's really interesting. Not always that.
It's looking at the platforms as well, like Gelato, like big company, and they've obviously put a lot of time and research into identifying like the opportunities within TikTok, and I would be bold to say that certainly out of all the clients I work with, you'd be lucky if 10% of them are using platforms like TikTok as an example, and I'm always encouraging them to be running short reels, kind of behind the scenes kind of clips, kind of what's going on in the business. And even I spoke about this earlier on, this golden ticket. This was a giveaway I had at the print show, but we done little clips kind of throughout the process of this job when it was printed. Then we showed it being embossed, then die cut and things like that. But even people I know that have been in the industry for a long number of years, they were fascinated at the engagement we got in those posts. But the amount of young people that come up to me at the industry to say that they loved those little videos and things because they didn't understand the process. And this is But there's no point in just listen. I'm a huge advocate for LinkedIn. Kind of, it's my go-to #1 platform. But if we want to be attracting these younger generations to come in, we have to be looking at things like TikTok and obviously a bit more Instagram and things. But TikTok, that's where all the young ones are hanging out just now, and they are excited. They do love seeing these things being produced, but we don't do enough of it. And yeah, all the trade shows and things are fantastic, but it's the day to day. These are the things we need to be getting better at on a consistent basis, and as an industry, we're not good enough at it.
I think what we're missing,
Totally.
what we're
And
lacking, what we're lacking is a
Go on,
clear
Gary.
strategy. Everyone is trying lots of different things, but no one is actually doing anything together. And I think we're missing out on a massive power of our industry to try to coordinate and align better the communication that we have. I also think there is a risk that, we might be asking for too much too quickly. The fact that we're having this conversation today, some of the conversations are taking place, some of the initiatives that are taking place, done by kind of individual providers, whilst it might not be coordinated and therefore you might question how efficient it is, the fact that it's taking place signals that there is a shift that is taking place, there is a consciousness that we need to evolve our conversation, even if we've not yet found the right place. I always try to focus on, okay, what are the good things that are taking place? Conversation like this is a very, very good example of the fact that there is an understanding that we need to evolve. Then we look at, okay, who is doing what, and who is kind of finding the strongest recipe to engage with that younger audience, the decision makers of tomorrow. And then, what is missing is that cohesive body that will say, all right, we're going to push this at a countrywide level, and then everyone just kind of follows up with this. The print industry doesn't have that solid voice yet, in my perspective, that enables us to start that shift at a wider level. You can do whatever you want, at your level, but fundamentally you're still restricted with the audience that you engage with, the people that you work with, and ultimately, even if you want to change, it takes an awful lot of time.
Marine, you're putting
Feels quite
ideas in my head
transitional.
already.
There you go.
Excellent.
We're
There we
adding to
go.
Colin's business here. We're adding to Colin's business here. But I feel like we're in a real transitional place as well. So putting, again, I keep using you as the example, Colin, just because you'll speak to lots of print owners to help them tackle this on a daily basis. I would have thought, and elements that are affected by this. We feel like it's quite transitional because there are, I suppose, smaller, and you've referred to Gelato. I know Gelato very well. I used to look after them historically, so I looked after them for a long time. And I don't mean them when I describe this, but there are a lot of what I'd call is relative startups or businesses that have incubated over a while, and manufacturer businesses and platform businesses like that. So there are lots of those type of businesses that aren't held back by tradition. So they don't have to maintain and grow. They have the benefit of seeing a journey and a path in front of them, which is we're articulating a lot in this, and they almost got a run at it. But they're still a smaller proportion currently, growing, I would suggest, of what this market looks like. Outside of that, there are other 90% of printers or print manufacturing businesses that we probably work with, we probably sell equipment to, the digital, printer magazine will sell presses to, and you'll help out, Colin, which are challenged with. They can see the path, they can see what's going on, but they don't know how to get there, because 5 or 10 years ago, we're not telling them anything new. People want personalized posters. Kids want to go to concerts, take a snapshot in time and get the poster for the still that they produced at the time they want it. And this is all integrated with storefronts and TikTok and all these online brands. Most people can see it. And I think a lot of print owners or PSBs are hamstrung as they themselves, when they started out, knew the path. This is a different path. The end product is still printed. It's still physical, it still lands. How you get it there and how you tell people you can get it there and how you make it happen are completely different. The tools, the technology, you go into some of the businesses you talk to, Colin, I'd suggest, and you talk about the tools available and all the buzzwords we've referred to, which I'm not going to layer into this, but we all know it. And there's a million different providers out there that say they can do exactly it, but you wouldn't. Historically, you knew how to put your pre-press workflow together and what you needed in your plate room and all the things that you needed to get your litho press running. You just about got your head around digital print when you had a rip and, oh, you don't need that, well, that goes, it's a PDF, that's sketch printed, you know. So you've just about got your head around that. And now how you bring sales in are totally different. You've got storefronts, API, salespeople, they don't know. And that's a barrier. And for all the things that Colin will do and the industry bodies and things like this, to, you know, we need to get better at helping PSPs to see what the journey's like and how vibrant it could be with the right type of help, rather than to try and sell every tool going. I would imagine everybody's had, you know, tools sold to them, software tools, rather than actually, what does that do? How does it function? Do I really need that? Is that a nice to have or is that a must have? And we'll hold ourselves back. It's not the industry necessarily, it's not the products. I know this is taking it in a slightly different tangent. This is about selling the Sizzle, and it's turned into how to help PSP see that there's a Sizzle to sell. But I think it all goes hand in hand. It's about education on both fronts. As I say, I think it's multifaceted.
With that in mind, how much of selling the Sizzle then is cultural to begin with? Shifting that kind of narrative away from, you know, what do they call it? Pale, male and stale. That's kind of one way I've heard the industry described. You know, just, you know, old boys selling machines that they've been selling for 40 years. How much of it is really about listening? How much of that engagement is about not actively engaging, but listening to what people need? We've kind of touched on that before, and, you know, honing people's kind of this persona that you have of people, of what they need. Colin, you've talked about personas in the past, you know, and how much of that then needs into guidance? You know, maybe the Sizzle is there in, you know, let me show you what's possible.
Yeah, I think again, the one thing I'm trying to push, and we're definitely seeing shifts, but people are taking more of an omni-channel approach. They're trying to they're starting to pull traditional marketing methods and new marketing methods together, and actually just showing them that experience. Like it's kind of gamified a lot more. Like, in fact, I got a package through last week from Starlink. I was getting new internet sorted, and actually that process you go through with you get the nice package and you open it up and there's QR codes, and even just the experience of setting up the internet was quite exciting. And that comes from both kind of merging print and digital methods together. And people see this on a day-to-day basis, but it's just not registering. So we need to do a better job of highlighting how they both go hand in hand, and how print is still exciting and how it can be even more exciting when combined with the new digital methods that people are using as well.
Yeah, it goes back to that demand generation, doesn't it? You know, how we can generate demand by just how we position ourselves. And again, everything we seem to come back to the education and the perception and how we package ourselves up, but creating the demand for the product we produce, or products that are produced. And I think I said it earlier, it's the word print conjures up a different image than what we're talking about. So it's how you know, we produce products, we deliver experiences, we deliver promises. So, and the things we produce are tangible, they last, and they're relevant, and, you know, and you don't have to wait 2 weeks anymore. You know, it's not old. You can get it within, you know, your receiving experience can align yourself to your digital one, albeit, you know, within 24 hours, you can be receiving things that are printed, manufactured. It can be customized. It can fit in with what you want. You know, flooring printed. You know, there's all manner of things. We produce products and we deliver experiences. How do we foster trust? I think one of you used the word trust. Exactly. How do we get the right trusted people? You know, the trusted organization to get that message across, but also from a PSP's perspective, trust that they can get on this journey too. Because these products, there isn't just one or two of them. There are thousands of them that get manufactured using most of the equipment that we probably all currently use. Definitely digital, but you know, and you might need one or two bits of investment. But I think sometimes people see it and thinks it comes with big ticket. And if you're a PSP struggling with margin, falling demand, you've got people's livelihoods and things to deal with, to actually then have the mental energy to look at change again. Do we go again? All right, what's this movement? How do we help? How does the industry help? How do organizations like you guys help? And when I say you guys, I'm the PSP. So you guys provide support to PSPs in various different ways. So how do we help them see that there's a journey, help, trust, education?
But I think we need to move away from, so I absolutely agree that individually, whilst we can do many things, it requires an industry synergy to be able to shift the narrative and the conversation and the perception. But we also have to stop talking about, we always apologize for the print industry. It's always a defensive dialogue. Oh no, print is not dead. Of course it's not dead. And then we try to justify why it's not dead. And I'm like, why are we even having that conversation? Print is everywhere, just wake up. And this is where I think the message, we've got to stop answering to a question and actually come up with a narrative that we choose to tell the world. It's not about protecting ourselves. We are the oldest industry that exists. We don't need to explain why we're relevant. We don't need to justify why print matters. I mean, I'm sorry, but that is not even the question. So we need to stop answering to this criticism or negative perception of what print is, and totally say, what I'm going to tell you, the story that I choose to tell you. And if you want to understand the whys, then I suggest that you revisit the last few centuries, because you will find all the explanation that you need and all the technical evolution that you need. But we need to start to say, I'm not going to apologize. I'm going to tell you what you don't know yet and that you really need to hear, and be quite brutal in our approach and stop apologizing.
So glad you said that, Marine.
Yeah, totally.
See,
That's the quote for this. That's the quote for this interview.
Do you know, I was listening to another print company's podcast in the States yesterday, and that was the very thoughts going through my head. I'm like, why are we defending this all the time? Like let's start talking more positively. And you just hit the nail right in the head there, Marine. So
I've heard this a lot, actually.
Yeah, completely. It's a fallover almost from digital. I think everybody went on the defensive when email marketing and digital, and then and there was just explosion. No printer ever wanted to call. Everyone was marketing service providers. They wanted any other way of describing what they did other than what they did, and that was almost a backlash. Not a backlash. That was a defensive move because of the channel. And we're talking about a channel, not a product, not a thing. It's a channel. And you're right. And it's about time we got away from that. We've overcome that. There's enough research gone out, and you've seen it a lot over the last few years, that no one has to explain really that physical printed products are still alive, kicking and doing, and flourishing. They might be different, and how you get there might be different. But you're right, that time for apologizing or defending or justifying or bigging it up is almost over. It's almost flipped. Oddly, and we flipped it, we take a different view on it, which is hopefully then 90% of what we talked about on this call, all the great things it does. It's a flip. You're exactly right. You are right.
Just to kind of wrap things up, I've got one kind of final question to mull over just briefly. But if you had one piece of advice that could distill your thoughts to printers who wanted to sell the Sizzle, rather than just selling the sausage. If you wanted to sell the Sizzle, whether you're a PSP attracting a new generation of customers who are using a new generation of tools like Canva, or, selling through the TikTok shop, or you're an OEM selling finishing equipment, and, you're trying to convince people of the emotional impact of your work, or, you're like Colin, you're working with the print industry to kind of help people resonate with their audience. What would be the one line that you could say to help people sell the Sizzle to their target audience? One takeaway.
You want me to go first?
You mentioned you go first, we can then think.
One line. I think it just summarizes what we've been speaking about. You've got to speak the language of the younger culture. You've got to talk to them. It's like when I'm speaking to the clients I work with, like, you've got to understand who it is you're trying to target, where they're hanging around, so you can put your message in front of them. And that's what we need to do. We need to understand where the younger generation are hanging around, and we need to hang about there too. And we have to talk about this industry positively and show them what we can do. That was a very long one sentence, but yeah.
For me, it would be go and talk to your customers. Everything starts and stops with them. Listen. What are their bottlenecks? What's keeping them awake at night? And then understand how you might be able to support some of those concerns. If you do that, you will not sell the product, but you will actually sell the what it enables them to achieve.
I think you both done. You both probably answered exactly how I would say it. It's, if I can take in a slightly different tangent, keep it simple. Don't be afraid of the possibilities of what could be produced if you try and keep it simple. And then when you're talking about the industry, but your business and the products you produce, speak with enthusiasm, and try and be as authentic as you possibly can. It's amazing how good things come out of honest, enthusiastic conversations, and it might just be the golden nugget opportunity that a lot of people have to stumble across in this. In someone backs you to have that conversation, so be proud, speak enthusiastically about the products you produce, and you never know what the conversation might open up in terms of opportunity, which is pretty much exactly what you guys said.
We're all singing from the same hymn sheet.
100%.
Fantastic. Well, thank you so much. I really appreciate that. And Andy, Marion, and Colin, thank you so much for giving up your time and expertise and wisdom. And hopefully
Thanks, guys.
there's some really valuable takeaways from that. So I really appreciate it.
Pleasure.
Thank you.
Great stuff. Thanks, everyone.
I hope you enjoyed that, and thanks to Marine, Colin, and Andy for sharing their wisdom on the topic of marketing to a new generation of customers, the topic of selling the Sizzle. Don't forget to subscribe, comment, or get in touch with your thoughts and ideas. And if you want to sponsor us, do drop us a line. Contact details are at digitalprintermac.co.uk. Until next time.